Callie Finn. We're back. It's WNBA Mondays, and the WNBA season I think it's been really great so far, honestly. Seriously. Like, I'm just enjoying it. And there's many things right now that are surprising me, Callie. And one of the things that are surprising me is that the New York Liberty have lost 3 of their last 4 games. I just don't think with the way they started 9-0 that was something that any of us would have expected for the reigning champs, but they have. Now look, at the end of the day, they still are second in the standings. The Minnesota Lynx do now have a 2-game lead over them, which could be critical depending on how the rest of the season plays out. But, a large part of it, candidly, is just they are down some really important pieces to their team. That's not the only thing, though. They haven't played like themselves in their last couple of games. I mean, it was close to 20 turnovers, in their last 2 games. So there are some things, too. And I'm sure not having Sabrina Ionescu in their game yesterday against the Seattle Storm, which was one of the 3 games that they lost, was really key. And that was like a late scratch. Like, it wasn't expected that Sabrina was going to miss that game. And so they go into the game yesterday already down Jonquel Jones, already down Leonie Fevich, and now they lose Sabrina Ionescu. Even for a team as deep as the Liberty, that's a lot to overcome.
Yeah, I think absolutely. You heard Brianna Stewart talk about after losing to the Seattle Storm, which was, back-to-back losses at that point. They had just lost to the Mercury in the previous game. Something that Stewie was talking about was just like, we're going to face a lot of adversity this season. This might not be the worst that we face, but it's definitely something that they have to work through. I think something that stands out to me is that going into the season, the Liberty's chemistry was a big part of what excited people about them. You win a championship. You're there's no doubt that you are a team that is close and bonded and things like that. And so now you're missing some starters and things like that. And now it's like that chemistry is being tested a little bit, I think. And so, like you mentioned, the turnovers and maybe even like some issues just adjusting to what the defense is throwing at them. That's kind of like what it seemed like with the Storm. Those are things that, it makes sense that you would struggle with when you're down some key personnel. I don't think that, if by any means this is something to panic about. I actually really like Stewie's approach, which is just like, we're going to see adversity. Like, this is not the worst of it. But I think this is a time where we can learn a lot about the Liberty.
For sure. And they were still in the game. They have been in every game that they've always lost. But what the thing is, we said they've lost 3 of their last 4. So the one that they did win, they were down almost 20 points. They were down 17 points to the Atlanta Dream, and some heroics from Sabrina Ionescu saved them from maybe losing 4 games in a row, right? Like, Atlanta had them right there on the ropes and just couldn't close it out. And that was the game that actually, no, Jonquel didn't play that game because she was making her return the next game versus the Phoenix Mercury, which I attended, and she went down in that game, re-aggravated the same ankle, right ankle, that she worked so hard to get back from. You know, listen, when the news came down, I think it was on Friday, that Jonquel Jones was going to miss 4 to 6 weeks, that's significant. Like, that's significant. And I say that because people debate if Jonquel Jones is the Liberty's MVP. She was the finals MVP. Some say she's their most important player, but they are just a very different team when she is not on the court. Are they still a very good team if they have the rest of their squad? Absolutely. But defensively, she does so much for them. Offensively, she does so much for them. It's and it just depends on your schedule and who you play, and you have to hope that there aren't other like significant injuries. But and we saw this last year with the Aces, but like when a player like that misses time, that means it changes everything for everyone else in terms of their minutes, more wear and tear on bodies. The reason they say it's so hard to repeat is because of things like this. You need a lot of good luck, injury. I remember when I previewed the season with Tarika Foster Brasby and Christina Williams, I asked, how do you think the impact of like Eurobasket will
Mhm.
affect a team like the Liberty, who at that time, they were supposed to have like 3 players going. Niara
Yeah.
Sabli pulled out because she was injured again, and so she just thought that was in her best interest. So it ended up only being Leone, but like they were supposed to have multiple players, going. Marine decided not to go, Johanna. So they lucked out in that it only ended up being one player, but it's still a starter, and Fevich is so big to what the New York Liberty do.
Yeah. I mean, one thing that's interesting about Marine and Niara is they can be so key for the Liberty. I mean, like you saw stretches of Niara in the finals and even
For sure.
Marine in these last 2 games, like they can both make a huge impact. And so it is wild to think about how international basketball can impact a team season. And it's not just the Liberty that are dealing with this. But I do think that like this is a time for players to step up. And that can always be fun too, like for just to watch, like outside looking in, how stretches like this can maybe refine things for players that wouldn't have gotten like the same amount of time or usage otherwise.
Yeah, well, Leo is away right now. She's already missed, I believe it's 4 games, and probably will likely miss their next 3 games before she returns. She's playing for Germany. That's one of the host countries of Eurobasket, so not expecting her back before early July. And who knows when she first gets back, if any time is going to be needed just for her, because you probably play it. I mean, Leia always plays like intense, but it's a different level of intensity. We saw early in the season players like Kayla McBride take time before starting the season because of overseas play. So not every player just hops on the plane and gets back. I'm sure, knowing Leonie Fibich, she probably will. And I'm sure a lot of that too will depend on how the Liberty are faring, so far in the season, because like I said, they really don't want to end up in a situation where there's so much distance between them and the Lynx. I mean, yeah, they fought so hard to have home court last year, and they got to decide the finals, home court, on their arena. And like both teams are capable in winning in each other's building, but who is not going to want home court? So they really have to try not to drop too many games.
100%. That feels like the story of the season right now. Like all the teams that we talked about today, it's like please just don't lose too many games because that's going to really mess up your postseason picture. So I'm with you on that.
And it can also just make things really wonky when you think about like the end of the season, because like let's say because of like injury and like all of this stuff, the Liberty dropped to like 3 or like God forbid 4. Could you imagine you work so hard and you're like the Seattle Storm, let's say, and you end up at like 5, and like in the first round you got to face the New York Liberty, right? Like it could really put a hiccup in the standings. So that's something that I also just find really fascinating about this time that Jonquel Jones is going to be out. And quite frankly, their next 3 games are not going to be easy. They're going to see the Valkyries again, who have maybe one of the strongest home court advantages in the
Yeah.
WNBA, right? And whoever already played them closely, right? So the Valkyries have shown, and they're also down some players, multiple players, due to Eurobasket, but so far hasn't seemed to impact them. So they have the Valkyries in a building that they continue to sell out at home, right? So over 18,000 screaming fans in the Bay. And then they also have Phoenix and Atlanta.
Yeah.
Atlanta's going to want that lick back, and now they're going to have the chance. Well, last time it was also without Jonquel Jones, but it's going to be in Atlanta this time. Mercury already stole one, so I know the Liberty are going to want to get back at them, but they're going to be in their building now. It's not going to be in New York. So, I mean, these next 3 games are not even like, that's a tough stretch, and we
Yeah.
don't know. Like, I'm hoping that this injury with Sabrina and her neck is not anything lingering and she just missed that game. But we actually have not heard yet if Sabrina Ionescu is going to be back. We know Leone is not going to be there. And also Jonquel Jones will not be there. So that's a tough stretch when you consider, even with Sabrina back, that's a tough stretch without JJ and Leone Fibich over the next 3 games all on the road.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. The on the road factor too is also just rough. Like, I mean, on their bodies, you mentioned, when you have players out, that's like it's a physical demand for the players that are still playing. And so I think that you add the road trips and like you said, some of these home court advantages for these teams. I love that you mentioned the Valkyries because I feel like that's something that we could talk about separately for a long time. Like their fan base has really stepped up and not to anybody's surprise. We all knew like this is a brand new team in the Bay Area. They're going to be supported, but it's been really cool to see. So yeah,
Very.
the Liberty have a test in front of them.
And you mentioned Niara earlier, but she's also working her way back. So there has to be like a level of managing her load still, right? And so, look, at the end of the day, do I think the New York Liberty will be fine? As in, yes, like I still think they are, if not the best team in the league, the second best, arguably. Although I did move the Phoenix Mercury up in my rankings this week, so the Phoenix Mercury get that 2 spot. You have to. They only have one less loss than
Yeah.
the Liberty. They have one more win, and they beat
Hmm.
the Liberty in the head-to-head. And the Liberty have lost 3 of the last 4, while the Mercury are on a 5-game winning streak, longest
Yeah.
streak in the league. I don't really see a way that I could keep them out of the number 2 spot, to be candid. So,
Yeah.
in my rankings, I do have the Liberty dropping to number 3, but ultimately, I think they're going to be fine. Obviously, I still expect them to be one of those teams standing at the end of all of this, but some murky waters that they have to figure out how to handle for the next several weeks.
Yeah, absolutely.
Callie, thank you so much, as always, for joining me today. Guys, make sure you are tuned into the WNBA on NBC. Subscribe. That is our new YouTube channel, and you will be able to get all things WNBA here. We appreciate you tuning in with me and Callie today. Until next time.